I was, Hi, my name is Joel Solomon. I'm your master prosperity coach, and my mission is to help at least 100,000 people become financially free. And I'm so excited to be here today with Barbara Bank and Dominique Pacheco. Pronounce that right?
Pacheco.
Pacheco. And we're going to be talking today about financial abuse as well as financial infidelity. And I just want to introduce the topic by talking about the reason why Molly Singh and I wrote Infinite Love and Money. And the reason was and is because when I was coaching one of my clients a few years ago, I was working with him on him getting his dream job. And then we started talking about money and money flow and cash flow, and he realized that his cash flow was negative. So at this point I said to him, we're talking about cash flow and budgets. You should get your wife on the next call. And he said, Joel, my wife, you don't need to involve her. She doesn't get involved in the money stuff. And I realized that this is quite prevalent and it's not helpful. And communication about money and communication in a relationship about money is essential. And that was the main reason why Molly and I wrote Infinite Love and Money. So Dominique, I know you have some stories about financial infidelity, financial abuse. So pass it over to you first, and we'll just chat a little bit about this topic.
Well, thank you for having us, Joel. I'm actually super excited to have met you through Barbara and talk about what you are actually about as a master prosperity coach. What Barbara and I do is we actually are how money works coaches. And so we take, you're working on the mindset of the individual coming to you for mastery. And then we take it the next step, which is how to apply those principles to their own money. And so one of the things that happens in our day-to-day, because we meet with hundreds and hundreds of people, is the understanding that not only do people not have the correct money mindset, because where do you get that in the United States? I grew up in California. You grew up in New York. Barbara grew up in New York. Both of us, bi-coastal, we didn't get that mindset in school. I didn't get it from my family. And here's what happens. You go out into the world, you graduate into a world in which speaking about money is not normal. I cannot go up to you at a cocktail party and say, hey, Joel, how much money do you make? And are you ready for retirement? And what does that mean to you? That is not a normal conversation. And so one of the first things we work on is normalizing the conversation. Barbara, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about your own personal experiences with this subject. I want to invite you to speak, and then I'm happy to share as well.
Sure. So I'm Barbara Bank, and I'm working with Dominique on a business about financial literacy. And I will just say that I had a great education. I grew up in New York with a parentage of teachers and principals, but I was never taught financial literacy, and I didn't come from a family that was in banking or finance. So as it just happened, one sort of sad story about this is that parents die, and my mother had gone from sharp as a whip to deteriorating into the cases where she had to get a lot of help. And because we didn't know anything about this 5-10 years before, we went through the whole estate. Not that I had a big estate and I come from the Rockefeller wealth, but we had an estate and it was just sucked up from her care. And my brother and I had to pay for her own funeral. So that just brings it home to me to share with some people, because it's really relevant.
I think that what Barbara described, in a spectrum of understanding, I think most people have had some form of that experience. So getting even more specific in terms of, Joel, I love this subject of financial, I don't love the subject, but I love to talk about the subject of financial abuse, because once again, if we're talking about money mindset, people aren't thinking of themselves necessarily being abused. So I had this, we were speaking before, and I had this realization that there's not only like male, female, partner, parent, child, there's also systemic abuse. So kind of what Barbara was talking about, not having the bigger picture ahead of time to think about things like long-term care, and products and services that we specialize in that guarantee people will never run out of money. How's that one? And that's one aspect of it. But then there's the aspect of like people who want to retire and hadn't been taught what that's going to take with adequate time to prepare. So I had a client, she was in her late 60s. Her first language is Spanish. She had been working at a nonprofit for over 20 years, participating in their 403B, finding herself in a situation where she was going to be forced out of her job because she did not want to take the COVID vaccine, which meant that she had to be prepared to retire because she wasn't going to be a 68, 69-year-old woman going out in the marketplace after 20 something years at a nonprofit. So when she came to me, she felt the sense of like, I don't know what to do. There's nobody helping me. And I don't know if I can do this. And the abuse part is maybe debatable, but think about that. Like when you're actually faced with, I'm now forced to make a decision, and I don't know if I'm capable of making that decision and being able to take care of myself for the rest of my life. To me, that is a sense of systemic abuse, that the system itself in which she had been immersed didn't educate her enough to give her enough information to say, you know what, you should probably be contributing more than this to your 403B if you really do want to use this as retirement money. And I was able to show her how to structure things and how to actually retire. But guess what? She had to move to Mexico in order to do this, meaning that her cost of living, we live in Los Angeles, was going to come down significantly, which would allow her actually to have a better life because she actually owned property there. But once again, this is somebody who had things in place, but just wasn't connecting the dots. So for me, that's a form of systemic abuse. Joel, I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
No, I think it's, again, it's back to education, right? And we're not educated on finance, on money, on basic issues, right? You know, budgeting and credit cards and how important a credit score is and what is a credit score and how to improve your credit score. So all this basic education is so critical. And that's why, you know, I love what Dominique and Barbara are doing. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, educating, just teaching. I don't have a product to sell except for my books, but I don't have a product to sell, but I'm just educating people to inform themselves so that there is an abuse, you know, they can't be abused, right? So if you're fully educated and you have the right money mindset, then you won't be abused. And in Infinite Love and Money, we talk about financial infidelity. And this is when your partner or you are misleading or lying to your partner about your spending. And there's actually, we talk about this in the book, where because of the excessive spending, one of the partners didn't want to disclose how the credit card balances were growing, right? And to me, the borrowing from your credit card is the worst, because that's the highest rates. You know, some credit cards are 25, some are 30% or even higher. So borrow other places. But if you are hiding and being, you know, there's infidelity, there's sexual infidelity, but there is financial infidelity that happens throughout relationship. You're hiding spending of money. And one way to do it is you set up your own credit card and then you spend there and you don't show your partner. And then, that amount compounds over time. So what we talk about is, being open and communicate. And so creating a budget, and also creating a budget for the whims, the splurges, right? It's okay to splurge. We talk about this as one of the money personality types, is splurger. So it's okay to splurge, but be open and honest with your partner, and come back, as Molly Singh talks about, to love. It's, come back to your relationship with love, and know that, you have support. So have a discussion up front, early in the relationship, about how you're gonna splurge, and use money for certain splurges, certain whims, and discuss openly expenditures that you might, maybe in other relationships you might have hid, but be open about it. It's like what we talk about in Infinite Love and Money, is it's really important to be open and honest in your relationship. And the abuse comes about when you're misleading or you're lying to your partner. So there are ways to, resolve these issues by being open and honest and communicating. We talk about, two dreams and love, right? So thinking about what your dreams are, and then thinking about what you really love, and communicating that to your partner, because you may be spending things on things you love, but communicating it with your partner is very, very important. So
And I
don't know
think
if you
that
guys have comments on that.
my comment is, like, once again, like this normalizing idea, first of all, talking about money, to all people entering a new relationship, get really clear day one, like have a money conversation. Like, what's your relationship to money? Are you a spender? Are you a saver? Doesn't matter one or the other, just own it, right? Just own it. So the other piece that came up for me in the communication thing is, one of the things that Barbara and I do with people is we sit down and we go through a financial needs analysis, which any accountant, any planner, any financial advisor, any coach is going to suggest, right? And then we take them through a process, and then an algorithm establishes the baseline rate of returns, inflation, all these things that then actually gives them real numbers. What does that mean? That means that we lay it out and we look at the truth. And then once you actually address your truth, you can actually make changes to achieve new goals, or the goals you have in general, right? So, but here's what happens. Let's just say that we sit down with one of the members of the family first. Maybe we get referred to the husband. And let's just say that the husband has been the major breadwinner and the decision maker when it came to money decisions, 401k, long-term savings, maybe even life insurance, all these things that people think about when it comes to family decisions. But let's just say that this person has decided, I'm the decision maker. One of the things that we really want to do is we want to meet with the couple, because part of our process is the dream map of a couple's life, right? Like, where do you want to go? Not just you, but both of you together and separately. Like you said, the splurging thing. If somebody needs to splurge in order to feel like they're alive, yes, let's plan for that. But one of the places of abuse that I have actually witnessed is when one of the partners says, no, I'm making the decisions, and this person is like the exclamation point on the decision. And so that might not appear from the outside to be abusive, but I would offer that in this conversation that we're having is there's too much of that as normal, and not enough talking about the fact that that might not be balanced, and that imbalance might create, going more towards financial abuse. As you said, maybe they're pulling out credit cards. I've been through divorce with my clients. I've seen the things that happen in divorce, accounts getting hidden, these things that happen that maybe we don't term them abuse, but they're certainly not straightforward. And so I'm very interested in like having these conversations about this stuff, because I think that more of that happens than not.
I'd like to point out, so Dominique mentioned, I own what you are, saver, spender. So we, in Infinite Love and Money, we created 7 money personality types. The acronym is Sugar Pie. Sugar Pie. So S stands for splurgers, U for the unconscious ones. And these names are provocative for a reason. And also know that personality isn't permanent. That's actually a book by Dr. Benjamin Harvey. So your money personality type does change over time in certain circumstances, over age. So S, splurger, U, unconscious, G for greedy, A for the accumulators, and then pi, P, the protectionist, I, the investor, and E, egotist. So you can go through and actually do the money personality type survey and figure out which one you are. It's a very simple. My daughters who did it when they were 15 and 13, it took them 5 minutes. Shouldn't take you 5 minutes. Very simple survey to figure out which one you are. And it is provocative, but the point of looking at what you are is to figure out how you can compromise, right? There are benefits to even the greedy ones, right? There are benefits to each money personality type. So know which one you are and then see how you can compromise. So that's an important point. The other point I wanted to make is beliefs. So we all come into the relationship with beliefs, and sometimes they're completely mismatched, right? I believe that we shouldn't use any debt, and you believe you got to put only 20% down on the house, have 80% debt on the house. Well, you got to have this discussion up front early on in the relationship. What's the right amount to give for charitable gifts every month or every year? What does retirement look like to you? Or what does it look like for me? And how do you reconcile when, for me, retirement means working the rest of my life as a prosperity coach, and for you, you want to be on the island of Maldives, 14 weeks of the year, so how do you reconcile that up front early on, rather than, you're 70 and now you're having the discussion, right? That's not beneficial. So, understanding what your beliefs are on finances, and then calmly sit down and come together and communicate on what the issues are. That way it's not abusive, right? You don't get to a point and then you're hiding things, you're doing things behind the other's back. And so we talk about the importance of, you mentioned, Dominique, the dream map, right? We talk about dreams and desires in the book, and really figuring out what those big dreams are, right? And hopefully you have some alignment. And if you don't, then have the discussion.
I think that you said something really key, and the operative word was calmly. And back to mindset, I don't know that, in fact, I can venture to say that the vast majority of people I speak with about money are not calm when it comes to money. I think money is one of the biggest triggers that exists, because money makes the world go round. It doesn't matter if you have a lot or a little, it's all the same. It's just an energetic tool, but it triggers people different ways. And so, like, the whole calmly thing, I talked to a woman the other day and she's like, I'm sorry, but I can't have the second conversation. My husband will not come to this. And I'm like, well, okay, I understand, but I can't meet with you to make any changes if you're in a marriage, because I can't do anything for you as a couple. And she was sad about it, but I don't think she was sad about that. She was sad about the nature of their relationship, and that she couldn't do anything about it by herself.
We actually have a whole chapter in Infinite Love and Money on emotions, and Molly did a great job. And it's interesting because emotions come from your perspective, perception, and ultimately your beliefs. So if you believe that money's not a concern, then you're going to be calm and comfortable at ease. If you're coming from the belief where we don't have enough money, we're never going to have enough money, then there's this insecurity and fear and being afraid. So it generally comes back to your beliefs around money, what you were taught growing up, and how to shift those beliefs. And we talk about how to move from a limiting belief to an empowering belief. You know, we talk about affirmations, we talk about audio files, we talk about acting as if in the book. And so, you know, if you say, I am a money magnet, then you're probably feeling abundant and prosperous, right? And that's a very different feeling than we don't have enough. We're never going to have enough. Mm-hmm. And look, I think most people are taught growing up this lack and scarcity mindset, which I was taught, you know, that's too expensive. Money doesn't grow on trees. What are you doing leaving the light on in your room? We're not a shareholder of Long Island Lighting Company. Turn that light off. That kind of mindset drives you into the future. So knowing you and your partner's mindset, belief systems, you know, there's never going to be enough. Or, you know, maybe one of you does, like I do, think I'm a money magnet and money comes frequently and easily, right? So it's really understanding each of your beliefs. You know, one belief I know is very limiting that almost everyone I've talked to has is you have to work really, really hard to be rich and successful.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, the people I know that have 3 and 4 jobs are not really rich and successful. They don't understand that your money can work much harder for you than you for your money. But that's what I know my grandparents taught my parents, and my parents taught me this, and it's just generational, and it's a really strong limiting belief. You know, work 14, 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you can become rich and successful. The richest people in the world, they have their money work for them.
It's fantastic.
So know where each of you are on the spectrum and see where your belief systems are, because they are driving how you feel those emotions. The fear and the worry come from a belief, right? And the ease and calm also come from a different belief.
I actually think that like what you just said is gold. And if you were to reverse engineer back from everybody I've ever sat with, and the most successful interactions I've had with people have been when they could recognize their belief and make a choice out of it. So whether that's a choice to move differently with their money in the future, find new ways to make money and allow money to come to them. It doesn't really matter what the mechanism is. It's more about the intention that they have about what the outcome is going to be. And that was really what you were saying. Like, am I a money magnet in my being, in my belief of that? Because if I am, that's the frequency I'm going to be resonating on. And that will be ultimately that will be the result. Is it that money doesn't grow on trees and I'm looking for the money tree? You're going to be looking for a long time. So I love that kind of like nugget that you put out there for people. And I hope that they get it, because Barbara and I can sit with you and we can make recommendations, and we can show you all day the numbers and the ultimate outcome of things. But if you don't come to the table being ready to act perhaps differently, nothing's going to change.
Another big one is money can buy me happiness. Right. And I'm actually doing a speech on this topic because I reverse it in the 9 Money Rules Millionaires use. Can happiness buy you money? I truly believe happiness can buy you money. Because if you're ecstatic and happy 24/7, then you're abundant and prosperous, you're rich. You may not be, in money right today, this moment, but So when you say money will buy me happiness, then you're saying money's the answer. And that actually creates the emotion you're insecure,
Mm,
right? You're feeling you're not worthy because this external thing needs to create the happiness. And
mm,
we teach about unconditional happiness, right? If you don't need an external physical thing to make you happy,
Yeah.
yeah.
then you're unconditionally happy. And we go through a lot of different ways you can be unconditionally happy, but coming into a relationship with that knowledge that I create my life, I create my emotions, I create my happiness rather than my partner, right? Relying on somebody else is it's still external. But if you know that when you go for a jog or you spend some time with your daughters playing games, or you're doing some meditation or yoga or whatever it is, playing with your animals or gardening or getting a mani-pedi, it really doesn't even have to be about spending money, right? Listening to an uplifting song or reading a powerful passage in a book, all that is creating happiness for you. That then you're unconditionally happy. That's
And
what's really, so know that not coming into a relationship, well, okay, this other person maybe has more money, so that's going to make me happy. Well, that's conditional happiness.
Mhm.
but also, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Barbara, but also like thinking about in relationship, because we're in relationship to everything. And so like if you can actually just show up, if you can just show up, whatever relationship you're engaged in, whether it's here I am in LA, there you guys are in New York, and look at how much similarity there is between our experiences that had nothing to do with geography or cultural sameness or any of that. But because we grew up in a certain time of a certain era with our parents, and my dad was a first generation American, and the idea that he had about struggle, and as you said, working hard for money, which my grandmother did. But like looking at my relationship to that and coming into the world as a different mindset has created a very different life than my grandmother and my father had. And God bless them. But the truth of the matter was that, it's kind of like clearing the decks with beliefs.
I say we're all one. We all may look different, skin color or where we come from, but we're all one. And so it's back to beliefs, right? And what are your thoughts? Because I say a belief is just a thought you keep on thinking. And to me, there's no truths except maybe a couple. But law of gravity, if you step off a building, you're gonna fall. At least in right now. I mean, maybe we'll figure out how to levitate at some point, but right now, gravity works. So, but generally, there's limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs. So, figuring out what words you're saying and are they limiting you or empowering you, and it just comes back to the thought. A thought that you keep on thinking becomes your belief.
Love that.
So hopefully you guys got a benefit from understanding that the emotion is triggered from the perception, which is triggered from the belief, which comes from the thought. And when you really delve into it, like, how are you feeling? You feeling angry or upset? That's a low frequency vibration. That's probably triggered by some belief around money that's not serving you. And when you're vibrating really high, you're happy, you're ecstatic, you're grateful, which is rule number 5 in the 9 money rules. You're feeling appreciation for life. Then you're vibrating at a really high level, and then you're feeling abundant and prosperous. And so knowing where you are on the emotional guidance scale is really critical. You're vibrating high and your emotions are, ecstasy and all those other I already mentioned, then you're feeling abundant and prospered and the money's going to flow. If you're down here,
Mhm.
then it's unlikely the money's flowing.
So true. I love that. Thank you so much for inviting us today. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having me.
Joel. Yes.
All right. Let me turn off.